Okay, so that's just recording. So, Madam Chair, go ahead and...
Let's get started. Yes, September 19th meeting, utilities meeting, daycare, sewage fees.
So I think it was at the last meeting this came up, and it was based on Laura Kirkham. It had a request for basically small daycares. I talked to utility billing, and they had 3 or 4 other 1 or 2 child daycares that were struggling with the same thing. And what they had proposed, they went and they looked at it, because as you know, our code does not, it isn't, winter average based. It's based on these tiers or categories. And so they had thought that the code as it was written wasn't fair to that group. And they had proposed, because the way it was setting up as a category 17 daycare facility, you were automatically doubled the rate. 111 is the standard single family rate. And so it was already 2 times the rate. And then if you went to 7 or more, then you had the additional 111, so you got to the 333. And what they proposed in this markup was to go ahead and keep the single family rate up to 6 children, just the way it was, and then have the 111 bump up and change the base fee for the 7 or more to the 222. And that would then, so if you have 7 or more, you're paying the 333, which at that point is acting more as a commercial type facility. It changes the residential nature of the.
Right.
So the committee asked that you had asked last time about, well, could we create more additional tiers within these tiers, and we had some conversation. So I went back to utility billing, and really what I got back from them is, unless you're really wanting to go to a restructure of our entire code and start establishing winter flow rates, and this is really the best we can do, and it seems like a reasonable fix. So I think at this point,
So you're recommending just trading another tier?
No, we're recommending just taking 17 and just taking the base fee from 222 to 111, and then for these,
All the numbers are showing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just looking at this first column, just going with what utility billing is recommending, because it's really going to open up a much larger conversation, which we had kind of during the gap analysis conversation anyway, about when we were looking at, remember last year we were looking at usage and...
So is that a conversation we just haven't had yet?
Well, we had it last year,
But
we had a very robust conversation, I think over half of 14 and 15 during the water sewer gap analysis about
The
would the
recommendation
city
would be not to change it.
not to go to a winter average flow based.
oh, okay.
And I don't know what percentages of utilities are flow based versus non-flow based, but I know that it was the city didn't want to go to flow based because there's a lot of unintended consequences to that. I know that there's I know like Jerry, for example, has come to a number of meetings and I'm subsidizing. So we did have, without remembering the exact details of the debate, but we did have a very robust conversation, and it was determined that we weren't going to go to a flow base.
Or the way I looked at it, and I think I asked Katie about it, and she said, yes, there could be a way where you charge per usage, but it was that wasn't considered as predictable as what we're going with. So that's the way I heard it, and I wasn't on utilities back then. But
It was kind of the decision point was about a year ago, and
Yeah.
we had probably a year's worth of
Or more.
analysis or more of analysis of the system, water and sewer systems, from our consultant, and it was her recommendation. And that decision point, like I said, was just about a year ago.
I think it was, to me, the big driver was there were, in certain instances, it may be cleaner or beneficial, but our rates had already established, some lower usage benefits, but there were too many unintended negative consequences of moving to that.
I think the last one that we addressed related to something like this was the market.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was being classified like Safeway. And it's just apples and oranges.
Right.
So the solution we created is we created another tier.
It created a market tier, but the market did have the different elements. The difference was they didn't have the population. They didn't have the number of.
The usage, yeah.
Well, we were
right.
charging
Usage.
by fixtures,
Right.
and.
It was fixtures and the usage within,
Mhm.
because they had a common bathroom, but then they had the vegetables and the meat, but they didn't have the foot traffic to carry it. So
Yeah.
anyway, I guess staff recommends that we go with
Just
utility
sort of this-
committee, because that addresses what the concern is now.
And the last time, what we said is we take it to work study?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, number 9 up there.
Well, number 9, so what I have in your packet, so we had a number of these weekly meetings, and that's where we're at, progress review meetings. This was the last meeting from August 23rd. There's subsequently been another meeting, which was last week, the September meeting, right?
Yes, they're blurring together.
Yes. I think the important takeaway on this is the contract, the HDO contract does terminate at the end of this year, and for the retrofit, for the well-known retrofit, and there's nothing at this point to indicate that time frame is not going to be met. Now, I'm not saying here on September, or what is this, the 19th, that isn't going to be the case, and that we wouldn't end up having to do an extension, contract extension into 17. And at that point, I'd have to reprogram dollars and carry over. But at this point, we had asked HDR, you're going to be done this year.
And this is just the design, not building.
This is just the design. This is the retrofit. So it seemed like we were hovering around the 30% design for a long time, because that was really the meat of the whole thing. It's really looking at how do we handle the backwash material. Can we gravity that out? Do we have to pump it out? And pump sizing, and a lot of the hard decisions, I feel, really this last month have been made. And this basically is an overview of, storage, the storage tank, the tanks that are there, we're expanding those in size. And so there's just a lot of moving parts to finally making some, performance-driven decisions that now you can just move ahead and finalize things. So I was feeling a bit frustrated that we were hovering on this 30% design effort forever. But there was a lot of, and it was information that we were providing back as well, and they were asking questions, and so I think things are going to start really moving through the design development and final design phase more rapidly, and so I'm optimistic that we're going to complete. The only other thing I'm going to note is, as part of this very detailed redesign retrofit, there's been, I believe, more substantial, I'll use errors, because we're looking at that other errors and omissions thing. We've been able to, in testing the systems, find that there are more substantial errors that we are documenting that may benefit the city in the long run. Things that on first blush or how they were being tested wouldn't have necessarily shown up. But now that we're getting in and getting a lot more detailed information, it's like, oh, well, this pump isn't on this curve, and this is why. And so I think we're getting some pretty decent feedback, and HDR is documenting that. So, so we'll see how that piece moves. So other than that, this is really, we're just pushing HDR to wrap this up this year. Anything else to add, Thomas?
No, I think you hit it on the head. There's been a lot of analysis as far as when you start looking at redesigning a pump station. It's kind of like remodeling your house. You know, you start pulling stuff apart and you realize, oh, we got a little rod over there, and I didn't know we were going to have to do this. The biggest thing for us was looking at the pump analysis from SCADA and looking at our pump times and what does our storage need to look like so we don't have increases in stops and starts on well. The well itself, booster pumps are designed to start and stop a lot, but wells, you want them to kick on and run for a long time and then kick off, because that's a lot of shaft to get moving. So that was a big piece, and we were able to kind of get things sized, I think, more appropriately. So, yeah, moving forward.
Good. Okay, stormwater code. So at this point, it's called a discussion. It could be called FYI, informational. So I think at the previous meeting, I had included a copy of the letter that was sent by the Puget Sound Alliance. That was just a friendly.
So are they plugged into the city's effort?
Well, they just, not yet. I mean, other than that they sent us a letter like they sent to the county saying, hey, we're out here, be careful. And so now what we have, so I saw that as like just kind of a shot over the bow, friendly reminder. What we have now is actual lawsuit by the Puget Soundkeeper Alliance versus Snohomish County. And so what I have in the packet is the actual complaint, and then there's just a brief overview, basically saying that the county, Snohomish County, has failed to fulfill monitoring, record keeping, reporting, and planning requirements. And then there's kind of where the plaintiff had listed their plan doesn't contain legal authority or ongoing program for mapping opportunities, activities to adopt, blah, 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 blah.
And it's probably, and you can help me out on this, I'm sure, it's probably fair to say that there's hard to make a distinction between what's happening here and with the city. They're a phase one permittee.
They're a phase
Phase
one.
two here.
But
They're held to a higher threshold.
I think you can see that, to me, this is Puget Soundkeeper Alliance putting everybody on notice.
Right.
That it's very easy to take any city or county at this point, phase one or phase two, and go in, because these are because if you look at what they're claiming at Snohomish County,
Right.
it's like a burden of proof thing. It's very easy to just look at the permit, and literally that's all they've done. They've gone down the permit and they just said,
Right.
instead of, the permit says you need to have an IDE program. So they're just saying you don't have a robust ongoing program. So it's really easy to sue somebody, and now it's going to take Snohomish County to put a lot of effort to go back and say, well, no, actually we are, and this is all of our documentation.
So, who's Puget Sound Alliance? Are they a bunch of attorneys?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
it's make work. It's like a really lucrative.
They're environmental attorney. They've allied themselves. There's the Columbia River Keeper. They're all kind of a loose network of attorneys and fellows. So I don't know, when you do stormwater code, you don't reinvent the wheel. You try and use what's out there. And I don't know what the city's approach has been. But the county hired a contractor, and we're having our last scheduled hearing tomorrow night, so there's a conflict for me. But Puget Soundkeepers have been involved in this all along, including from day one. And our letter to them, and they're not done creating their standing for an appeal, but our letter from them so far says they really liked what we've done. They don't have concerns here. The only concern they seem to have is about our rate structure, which isn't something the planning commission would entertain anyways. So I don't know if you're looking at what the county has done, but there might be some utility in that, because
Well,
we've got it. Okay.
We did get some information, I think it was last month, that was very
We just
beneficial.
essentially followed, copied DOE manual, and, you know, there's not a lot of wiggle room there.
So,
And I have a meeting with the attorney
Right.
tomorrow evening to find out where we're at in our process.
right, so we do have, you know, our big piece is really just the LID. I mean, when I look at the other sections of our code, our IDEE and mapping, and, you know, I don't think we're having problems with compliance in those areas. The stormwater managers up in Paulsville actually had a forum, so, yeah, maybe at the next meeting, I'll probably have her come and give a more robust overview of where we're at, but
I don't think we'll bring the attorney over for that.
no, I'm talking about Andrea,
Okay.
to really give us an update of where we're at, so that'll be October, so that'll be pretty important, so I think really that's what we'll do, is we'll see where we get this next.
Okay.
So we'll have her at the October utility committee, give us an update.
And that was mainly a heads up.
That's just a heads up that these people are for real. And we really need to get a lot done in a very short time.
Fire hydrant. I noticed some plastic bags over fire hydrants.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Well, it's,
Is it
It's because we know now that they don't work.
color coded? No, they don't work.
That's what we've been testing, so I'm not gonna take Thomas's thunder.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here a little bit. So, you know, with change, a lot of good things can happen. And we've had a significant change in the last year and a half. And I think I was telling Rob the other day that when I got my water manager, it's like the new guy comes in all, hey, I got my water man. You know, are we flushing twice a year? We're supposed to. Well, we're only doing it once. And so when you have people that are running the system for 40 years and they're just kind of left on their own merits and they think they're doing it correctly, when I came in and I kept coming back with, why aren't we operating our valves? Why are we only flushing once a year? Why aren't we doing these hydrants? And there's always this, Mark, you know, you're like a puppy dog, just go away. We know what we're doing. Just leave it alone. And then, so I just got a lot of pushback, and I would say, well, we should be doing this. No, you don't know what you're talking about. And it wasn't really till Thomas came in, who has extensive water operations background, where he was able to challenge that senior group and say, no, actually, you know, you're required to do these things. And have a more hands-on, this is how you do it, this is why you do it, and, you know, we have to do this. And so we're at the point now to where we're actually turning every valve. Well, that's to come, that we did hydrants first. And we'll probably find out the same thing when we inventory. The other thing that's happening parallel to this was having a GIS platform, and we're putting a lot of money into that and developing that. And we're actually made a lot of headway in the last 12 months in that, knowing where all the meters are, where all the valves are, where all the hydrants are, having the data that's attached, the attribute files for those, that now we're going to be able to go to a hydrant and push a button, and this hydrant comes up, it's got a picture of it, and says when was the last time it was maintained, and get things on cycles. So right now we're playing catch up, and that's why we have so many that are bagged, is because they've never been touched for decades. And so we're at the point now where between the GIS and actually having proper supervision, oversight of the water system, these hydrants are going to be completely repaired and on a cycle and in the GIS system so that they'll pop up and people at the shop will know, I'm doing 6 hydrants this week, I'm doing 1 a day. And so it's frustrating for me because I've been asking for this for years. And it just, when you just get somebody just saying, no, I'm not doing
So when you say needing repair, does that mean they don't have water?
Or they're not working?
Or the valves,
are
you
they
can't open
Are they
them?
leaking instead of operating correctly?
Or all of the above?
So there's a lot of different kind of hydrant issues. It could be that when you operate it, that let's say that the bonnet leaks because the packing's bad. That's a hydrant that we need to fix, but it's still operable. We don't bag a hydrant unless, there's catastrophic failure, meaning this hydrant will not put a fire out. It is a protection of life issue.
So what's an example of that catastrophic failure?
It could be that the seat, that we call it the pumpkin in the industry, but it's the piece that connects to the main. Sometimes what will happen is that shaft will get twisted and it won't be able to operate. Or you get a gasket in there, or you get something that physically we can't open the hydrant.
Oh my gosh.
The other catastrophic failure is we open the hydrant and then we can't turn it off. That can happen. Okay. Some of these shafts were built back in the 50s. I mean, these are old. There's a couple of different hydrants out there. One of the issues with 2 of the brands is they've got a grease packing in them. It was great for the first 25 years, but then when they go bad, there's literally no lubrication for that stem, so you just can't operate it. In a lot of cases, it's cheaper to replace than repair. Some of that stuff's really, really old.
Did we discover the one on the corner here at Sydney and Kitsap Street by the Methodist Church
Mhm.
after it was required?
After it was required.
There was a fire on that block. It had nothing to do with that fire, okay.
Yeah, that hydrant
Okay.
wasn't used.
How fast are you getting to the bag ones then?
Quickly, but the problem is there's a legal component, and it's actually a water main issue. So if you have a water main that's 4 inches and you have a hydrant on it, it is illegal to replace that hydrant because it's technically a cross connection. What happens is the hydrant can pull more water than the 4-inch main can supply, therefore creating a void in the pipe, which could potentially create a cross connection. So you have to repair it. You can't replace it, because if you replace it, you've acknowledged that you know that there's a 4-inch main there.
Right.
And we'd love to replace all the 4-inch mains in the city, but you're talking,
it. A lot of 4-inch.
you've got to plan those improvements. So
Right.
you repair them when you have to, knowing that you're going to replace those mains. But repair parts for a 1954 Mueller,
Right.
they're coming out of, somebody in
Detroit.
Iowa.
not Detroit.
India.
So,
Yeah.
So yeah, we've identified the ones that don't operate. We've identified them on GIS, and we're getting to them in order of severity. This platform is really impactful, and I brought this today. It's sometimes not the easiest to see in a group setting. But for example, we've got a hydrant on this brown building over here. I'm not sure which building this is. Right at the corner where they're doing the ADA ramp.
Yeah.
So I can tell you right now that hydrant was inspected on 8/31/16 at 9:46 in the morning. I've got an address, I've got facility IDs. I know it's a Mueller IA with a 5 1/4 inch port put in 1991. It's been verified and I've got a picture of it.
So real quickly, you said you replace them by severity. How do you determine which one is at the top of the severe list?
Anything that's bagged, we have to fix.
Okay.
So you've got catastrophic and then non-catastrophic failure.
Right.
If the packing's leaking, the line is, will it save a life or put out a fire?
Right.
Because if that's the case, we still actually identify it as, what do you call them? They'll still show up as a red fire hydrant. So the red ones are hydrants we need to get to, the yellow ones have been verified and they work. But it's not bagged, so if there is an event. The big thing is that we're partnering with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue so that we're using the same data.
Mm-hmm.
And the key there is that when we bag a hydrant, and we can't do this today, it's something that'll happen within the next couple of months. When we bag a hydrant, they'll know about it. You know, we make a phone call and we tell them fire
that's
hydrant
critical.
119's out, because if that hydrant's out, they shouldn't be looking for a bag in the middle of the night. They should already know which street to take to get to the nearest hydrant, to, you know.
So if there are 5 bagged hydrants, how are you deciding between which one of those you allocate resources to first?
It depends on how many sleeping units are
Good.
nearest.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah, that's the big thing. If we've got something in a cul-de-sac that doesn't have good fire access, that's a lot more important than one
Yeah.
that's down here by, you know, a bunch of commercial properties.
Prior to Thomas, we weren't exercising the valves because of the situation.
Resources.
Well, and the individual that was supervising that group didn't feel that we should be exercising those valves.
I get it.
And so now we've got change in management
Right.
and change in philosophy. Another thing that's transpiring here too, and I'm getting pushback from the fire department, this year we've partnered with the fire department. Historically, they've done this on their own, and they go out and crack the hydrant, make sure it flows water, but they weren't exercising the foot valve out in the street. This year, we're exercising all of the valves, and in some of these cases, it's the foot valve that's bad out in the street. And so, Steve Cheapwright is pushing back a little bit because this is taking more time, but we think it's very important.
Well, and in the long run, we get there.
Right, and so now we know where our infrastructure is, how functional it is, how often it was serviced.
Right.
And when we get done with it, so in future years, this won't be as time consuming. So he's a little, here's summer's coming to an end, and he just wants to be able to check the box that they went out and touched all these hydrants and cracked them. Okay, that's his legal requirement. We want more than that. And so,
He just needs to see the long view on it.
yeah, so I've been trying to work through that with him. So
Yeah.
we're getting there, and
Yeah.
and we'll go faster next year because we've exercised a lot more of these valves and know where they're at.
These conversations are difficult, and the reason that they're difficult is because this stuff's expensive and it takes a lot of time and dedicated staff, especially when it comes to turning valves, that we're gonna be doing this late fall, early winter. Because when valves break, it's expensive. You're digging up the road and you're cutting in isolation valves and you're doing everything else, but the ability for us to operate and maintain our system and the ability to control water is 10 times the cost of not doing it. So, yeah, we've actually got, we're up to 12 different maps. We've got a new map for street trees. We're starting to capture some of that data. Stormwater,
Is that a map layer dedicated to street trees? Wow.
yeah.
In terms of what interference with utility wires or?
The goal is that we get to the point where we're actually looking at site distance things for signage and moving that direction. It's all staff time. It takes a long time to build the platform.
Probably help with compliance issues too.
Yes. One of the big things that people don't realize is
Is it ours or not?
what we're really
Right.
talking about here is asset management. So for example, if you want to
Yeah.
go in and get a DWSRF loan, or you want to apply for a grant, one of the requirements coming in 2018 is that any DWSRF loan, you will be required to have an asset management program. You will be ranked and get more points based off the robustness of your program. So it's
As it should be.
important that, there are a couple of jurisdictions that aren't jumping on the asset management bandwagon. It's a lot of work up front, but when you start projecting this stuff out over the next couple of years, we will have the ability to take itemized information that is very user specific and get it to the public. So for example, you could log in and say, here's my address, where's my water meter? Those things are possible, and we're collecting the data. Now it's going to take time to get there, but
Does the city consider stormwater an asset?
yes, we have a
Okay.
stormwater map.
So, and that's a big piece. Darren, we hired the first of the year as our GIS person. He's being funded from multiple sources, water, sewer, stormwater, and he's the one really creating our database and improving our database. So that's been his primary function. He's been out in the field a lot, with one of these tools, and
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
finding catch basins, and we've got another group that's exercising these valves and providing that data to him, so we've got multiple layers to this.
Yeah, Darren's been able to successfully map. I know it's hard to see, like I said, it's a small platform, but he's actually been out successfully mapping all of our downtown outfalls.
Nice.
So, and that's a big compliance issue, so.
Well, congratulations, this is all good news. That we're tackling these issues and we're addressing them with good technical solutions.
It's been exciting, you know, you see a lot of 15, 20, 25-year veterans in the field crew that, you know, I heard people say, you know, the iPad thing is going to be tough for them. This is never going to catch on. And now you drive by and they're out there mapping meters, and, you know, because you make it your own, right?
Yeah.
Your system is as good as you make it. You're
Yeah.
the benefactor.
Yeah, your truck can become your office.
Exactly.
Yeah. we can get
So
the
we've
printer.
got 4 of the trucks right now that have mounted stands for the iPads.
Yeah.
So we don't want people, you know, when they're doing this in the truck, somebody's like, what are they playing on their phone? You know, so you get it up there so people can see it's an actual device and it's got a stable station. So yeah, a lot of work, but it's good work.
Good job.
I gotta get to another meeting. Want to pop by?
Sure.
5 minutes?
Sure.
Stop by my office.
Okay.
Okay. I'll catch that, what you said
So
on the
I-
tape.
What's that?
I was gonna say about what I missed. We had a call I had to take.
Oh, yeah, no problem. In terms of the agenda for this meeting, somebody asked me where it was on our website. I couldn't find it. So,
Okay.
just,
Is it placed after the meeting on the website? Do you know?
I believe that this one comes up afterwards. I don't think that it's there
It's
ahead
not-
of time.
It's never
I
before.
think the idea we talked about
I
some time
remember this
ago
coming up, yeah.
was trying to get these, I know Mark was concerned about the time it takes to get materials together and having that available, but I thought we agreed that the agendas would get posted before the meetings so that if people wanted to.
And I remember Janine saying something about with the new website that we would be able to do that.
Okay.
But with the old website, it was so cumbersome.
Right.
But don't quote me. I'm just.
Well, yeah, at some point, I think we need to pull the trigger on that, and
Yeah.
if it's waiting on new software, that's fine.
Okay, did you talk about the meeting date? Let's see, that would be October 17th.
October 17th?
Does that work?
Yes, that works.
October 17th. 9:30. And we'll check with Mark just to make sure.
Yeah, I know he doesn't really have a whole lot of time scheduled off. Yeah, it's actually already on Mark and I's calendar.
Okay, good. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good work.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, this Puget Soundkeeper letter, I'm gonna take that back and go through it.
Meeting adjourned at 10:02.